Hi, everybody, and welcome to Proline, the longest-running sports handicapping show in America, direct from beautiful Las Vegas, where springtime is here and baseball's underway with the exhibition games. Fun time of season. Of course, basketball is the main focus. We've got basketball news, notes, matchups right here on the show. And this week, we asked which conference has the best chance of having two teams make it to the Final Four. And I think we gave four choices. We left the Big East off and Villanova plus somebody else, but I don't know about the somebody else at this point. So we went with these four conferences as options: the ACC, the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. And Jim, the envelope, please, and don't pull an Oscars deal.
Pardon me?
I said don't pull an Oscars deal here. Don't get the wrong one.
Okay, well, we're going to bring out Zeus. He's gonna talk about it. This is a little. Anyway.
It's a small version of the real thing.
Small version of the real thing. The real thing I can't pick up. He's about 70 pounds. But the winner is, and I have to, after I'm done with this, I'll say why I think we should have included the Big East. But the winner is 45% chose the ACC, and I can't argue with that. There might have 10, 11 teams in the Big Dance, which is far more than anybody else. So obviously the odds of getting the two or more teams to the Final Four is going to be that much better when you have that many more teams in there. The Pac-12, they got 35%. 12% got the Big 12, and 8% got the Big 10. I frankly don't think any of the Big 10 teams are going to make it to the Final Four. And when you look at the ACC, you're looking at North Carolina, Duke, Florida State, Louisville, Notre Dame, among others. And then you get the Big Ten: Purdue, Wisconsin, Maryland. It's a down year for the Big Ten.
I agree.
Of that group, I really only think that Purdue would have a chance. They're the only. I mean, they play solid ball, and I think that they have a better chance of any of them to make it. I don't think the others really do. Pac-12, of course, you got three teams there, and they're pretty darn equal. Arizona, UCLA, and Oregon. To get two of them in would be a miracle because you only have three teams to choose from with any viable chance. Now, the Big 12 is interesting because you got Kansas, Baylor, Iowa State, West Virginia, but I want to throw something else into the mix there. The hottest team in that conference has been Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
And although they lost yesterday, it was a heck of a war. And you're supposed to lose the game, and actually they did tie the spread there. So that was a 3-point victory for Iowa State, a real war. This team is playing really good. And there's a team that could get there. So I think it's fair. I don't think the Big East should have been left out. I think you have some, and then guys, you got teams out there like that could get there too. I mean, you got Cincinnati, who's playing very well. SMU's playing very well. Different conference, didn't include them, but well, it's a good poll, but it's not all encompassing.
I know, and we left out. Actually, we left out the conference I might pick right behind the ACC. I think the ACC definitely has the best chance of sending two teams to the Final Four out of the conferences nationally. The SEC could be the second because it's not a good conference overall, but Kentucky and Florida are really good. Kentucky obviously is always in the mix. This Gators team looks like they have the capability of making a big run, and I would agree. I mean, if you look at the Big East, I don't think it's inconceivable Butler could be sticking around for a long time in the tournament. We know Villanova I think Villanova is the best team in the country. So, yeah, it's a fun question. And that's what these are all about. These aren't really scientific, but I would agree with the winner of the poll, which was the ACC at 45%.
Dave, I'd like to jump in with something. I mean, I know that everybody's been saying that the mid majors are down this year, and maybe overall that's true, but I don't believe there is one team in college basketball that is that outstanding
No.
that you need to move aside and say, okay, they're going to get it. And I don't think there's anybody even close to that. Everybody has flaws, and some of these mid-majors are serious contenders. Easily could go into the Final Four, easily could win it all. I mean, you mentioned Butler. I love Butler. I love the way they play. They play very similar to Villanova in many ways. They're deep, solid ball club, solid coaching. Oklahoma State we mentioned, red hot team. Don't sleep on these mid-majors. They could win this year because there is no real powerhouse at the top of the pack.
Yeah, everybody's got flaws. I mean, North Carolina on some nights looks unbeatable, and then you see them against that pack line defense, and Virginia went small against them and gave them all kinds of problems in a game earlier this week, beat them by 10 points and held them to 43, the lowest output they've had since the Dean Smith four-corner days, which is amazing. Gonzaga had been number one for quite some time, but they got involved in a close game last weekend against BYU and didn't know how to handle it at the end. And you look at that team, and Karnowski, the big dude, he's not very athletic. And against an athletic big man, which he ran into in that game, that's a weakness for Gonzaga. So everybody's got something wrong with them. And it should make for a great tournament because, to me, any of 20 teams could easily find their way into the Final Four. And that should be entertaining and hopefully good from a betting standpoint as well.
And if you like to bet futures, I mean, I think there's going to be some opportunities to take some 15, 20, 30 to 1 teams and have a chance to hedge off of that as we go forward. If you get let's say you get a team that's you're getting 40, 50 to 1, and they happen to get through the first 2 rounds.
Well, then, yeah.
Now you got some play where you can start manipulating your bet by going against the money line stuff and all the things that you can do, and we can teach you how to do that. There's profit opportunities, but I would say definitely this year, don't be on the short prices. I think it's a bad bet. There's no value on short prices this year.
If you've got anything along the question, along the sports wagering line, just drop it to us. We'll be happy to answer it. Go to prolinetv.com. And Jim, folks can get 7 days of action for free by subscribing to our channel.
They just click on the subscribe button at Proline TV and get a week of service for free on me. Plus, go to jimfeist.com for free stats, articles, videos, my free fast facts, which you're going to find indispensable for the tournaments, especially when teams you don't really know and don't really chart. It's all going to be there. And plays are there from the nation's top handicappers.
All right, when we come back, we're going to look at some college basketball games, including an ACC rivalry duel between Miami and Florida State, so stay tuned. Okay, let's get back to it, and let's look at Miami and Florida State. The Seminoles, they're coming off a game in which they covered the spread in backdoor fashion. That was a 75-70 loss on Tuesday night at Duke. Seminoles now back home in Tallahassee, where they will face Miami on Saturday. And it has not been a good point spread run for the Hurricanes. They've been burning a lot of money this year, Jim. 8-16-1, or excuse me, 8-16 against the spread their last 24. Not very good, but still a very capable team as an underdog. And we saw them beat Virginia outright last week as an underdog.
Well, an interesting team. I mean, I like Jim Larinaga as a coach, but he's not had a good year against the spread. They haven't had a great year on the road against the spread either. So I mean, this is an underdog situation where they lost at home to Florida State. So it's in-season revenge, in-state revenge. It's a big game in that respect. But when you're talking about Florida State coming out and winning this game by margin, I think it's going to be tough. Miami lost the other day. They beat Virginia, 54-48 in overtime as a 7-point dog. But when they went up against Virginia Tech, that was a perfect situation. They were coming off the Duke victory, and they played very well in that game. But now they're going to Florida State, but they're getting a handful of points, and that could be something that you want to look for.
Well, this is going to be, to me, this is going to be a battle of pace because Miami wants to muck it up, play it as ugly as possible, turn it into just a grinded out snail-paced game. And Florida State, which has very possibly the most athletic team in the entire country, they want to get out and run. And the story on Florida State is that when they go on the road, they're generally not able to get the tempo they want. And when they're at home, they usually are. So I think that probably doesn't bode well for Miami here because they cannot run with Florida State. They just can't do it. And if this game gets up into the 150 range, as far as points scored, it's probably not going to be very pretty. And Florida State will probably win big. Larinaga is an expert at controlling pace, though. And if you look at these recent games, even on Monday, when they lost to Virginia Tech, it's a 66-61 game, he still won the pace battle. I mean, that's not the type of score Virginia Tech wanted. And I'm sure that they're happy with the win. But it's still, they're a team that wants to get up and down the court. And Larinaga takes that away. So it's going to be, to me, really interesting to see whether Florida State can force his hand. I have a tendency to think they might be able to at home. But it's probably not a bet for me. And I'll break it down to one real simple reason. Jim Larinaga plus points against Leonard Hamilton. There's no way I'm laying the points. I just stay out of the game because I don't like the matchup, particularly for Miami. But Larinaga plus points against Hamilton is a no-brainer because Larinaga is a way better game coach than Leonard Hamilton. Hamilton is a heck of a recruiter. His teams are fun to watch. But in a battle of wits and pace on the sidelines, I'm not a big Hamilton guy, especially when they get out on the road.
Keep in mind that the Hurricanes were outscored 44-23 in the second half and lost for only the second time in their past 25 home games, the first time they met earlier this year.
Yeah.
That was a 75-57 victory by Florida State. They killed them, and they held the Hurricanes scoreless for 6.5 minutes in the second half. Larinaga is going to make some adjustments. He is, in my opinion, way better coach. And as an underdog, I don't want him as a favorite because he doesn't put margin out there. But as an underdog, this guy's tough. And this is a big revenge spot, in-state rivalry. So you got to be careful, even though Florida State might be the kind of team that can go far in a tournament because you're going to be playing on neutral courts against teams that aren't used to seeing them. And their pace can make a difference. But in this game, this is a rivalry game.
Yeah, I agree. Here's another one. In the Big 12, Kansas and Oklahoma State, we talked earlier about how Brad Underwood has really turned things around in the second half of the season for the Cowboys. They looked like they were dead in the water. They'd lost 6 in a row in the Big 12, and boy, have they taken off. They're going to be in the NCAA tournament. I think you can make a strong argument they're playing the best basketball in the Big 12 right now, and that includes Kansas in that conversation. The Jayhawks are getting by, but they haven't been great. And I think with this game being in Stillwater, I think Kansas is going to have their hands full here. 27-3, but I wouldn't be surprised if they come out of this 27-4. I think Oklahoma State's got a really good chance to win this.
Dave, you have an idea what this point spread might be in this game?
I didn't make a number for it, but I'm going to say maybe Oklahoma State 1, right in that range. It's going to be in the Pick'em neighborhood, I would think.
And let me give you an idea what's going on here. Oklahoma State had the war at Iowa State the other day, and there's no shame in their game for losing that game. That was a tough one. Iowa State's good, by the way. I mean, that's another team that could go far in the tournament. They're no dogs. Kansas has been money burner all year long. Bill Self, we know what he's done in these big events. When he gets into the tournament, he wins the Big 12 every year. It's just like it's just the way it is. It's kind of like the Patriots win the Super Bowl almost every year. But Oklahoma State in this spot is going to be very tough for them because Kansas just had senior night. And they have a lot of guys on this team that have been around a long time. So that was a big night for them. They came out with the victory. It wasn't easy. They were down early to Oklahoma, but that was a big night for them. Oklahoma State coming off that loss, this is a dangerous spot for Kansas, but doesn't really mean anything to Kansas.
Not
They've
really.
already, they're going into
Well,
the tournament.
number
They
one
already
seed.
won the regular season.
Yeah. I mean, they're battling for number one seed, obviously.
I
But
don't
I
think
don't know
that
how much
means
that
much to these
means.
kids.
No, I don't know how much that means. They met once before, obviously. Second time around. Good ball game. Kansas got the win at home 87-80. That was back in January. And I think it's fair to say that things have, that Oklahoma State team is not the Oklahoma State team we're seeing now. They've won 10 of their last 12. And they're covering spreads like crazy, 9-2-1 against the spread in those games for Oklahoma State. Tough team in Stillwater. As for Kansas, you mentioned that they have not been making money for their backers. They're 7-11-1 their last 19. They have been going under on a regular basis, and I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into a grinder of a basketball game. I just, when I watch Kansas, I don't see this as a team that's a national championship team. They're good. There's no question about that. I'm not knocking them in any way. They've got great talent. Mason's a tremendous player. Johnson's going to be a one and done. He'll be a lottery pick in this year's draft. Graham is a solid guy, but they just haven't, to me, put it all together and looked like a dominating team that ought to be an easy number one seed choice. I don't see that. And I don't know that there's a great deal of difference between these two teams right now. So you factor in the revenge, the home court, maybe the situation as well. Not that bad for Oklahoma State. Now, the one thing that I do have to talk about is they are extremely three-point oriented. And that's part of Kansas's game, too. Kansas is the best three-point shooting team in the Big 12. Oklahoma State's right behind them. If this turns into a long-range shooting contest, that may not be the best style for Oklahoma State. I think Underwood's going to go out there and come up with a good defensive game plan and force Kansas to do some stuff they don't want to do. Well, Underwood's good enough to do it. What a pickup this was for them, and what a mistake by Kansas. He wanted that job a few years ago. They went with Bruce Weber instead. Whoops. Sometimes not the best moves get made out there, and this was one of the examples. Too late for them to get Underwood now, although I think they'll be saying goodbye to Bruce Weber shortly. But Underwood, to me, as a coach, he won't get Coach of the Year. He's got no chance at it. But to me, he is kind of a Coach of the Year candidate for the great work he's done at Oklahoma State in a very short amount of time. I didn't think this was going to be a real good team this year, and they've turned out to be a solid entry that's going to be in the NCAA tournament. And they could be one of those teams that you talked about, Jim, that's out there at a pretty big price because they're only 20-10. So pretty good sized numbers available on them, and they could definitely be a Sweet 16 team.
I saw them at 190-1 the other day. That's a pretty big number for a team like this. But again, there are a lot of teams that are going to be favored over that. But it's getting hot at the right time that matters. We've seen it before in the NCAA. We've had years where there's the number one team and they're going to win, and they do win.
Not this year.
But not this year. That's not going to happen this year.
It's the opposite of the NBA, where you can pretty much put the two teams in the finals right now. It's going to be Golden State and Cleveland, and anything else is going to be a gigantic upset.
Well, we should talk about that a little bit now that Durant is hurt.
Why not? Yeah, hyperextended knee. I didn't check this morning. How significant is it?
Well, the thing that I read early was 6 to 8 weeks out.
Ooh.
So, I mean, and Cleveland has picked up a couple people.
Yeah, they have. I think Cleveland's the favorite right now.
I believe that they're going to probably have an easier time getting there to be the same as last year. One of the problems with LeBron is he's really leading the league in minutes. I mean, this guy's 15 years in the league. I don't know why he has to lead the league in minutes in meaningless games. You'd think they'd be saving his legs a little bit, but then again, I'm not. Maybe he can't do that because he doesn't want to do that. But in any case, that's just my opinion. But I mean, everybody was talking about Boston maybe clipping their wings, but then Boston comes out of the break and they're playing terrible.
And they didn't do anything at the deadline. And I think that's contributing to why they're not playing well. We'll see what happens tonight because the Wednesday night marquee matchup in the NBA is Cleveland at Boston. So that might be worth watching. But I made this point last Friday in the radio show, or whatever the NBA trade deadline was that day. I made this point. I said, and I have to say I haven't taken advantage of it from a betting standpoint because I wasn't sure it was going to happen. It was just a thought. But this was a tremendous letdown at the trade deadline for Celtics fans who were convinced that the team, which has an absolute wealth of draft choices, was going to do something and maybe get a short-term pickup with the Paul George or maybe go after Jimmy Butler. And instead they did nothing at the deadline. And the thought that went through my mind is if the fans are having a letdown, I wonder if the players might have a letdown as well. They think like fans sometimes, and I think the players of that team were expecting somebody to be arriving in Boston to give them that extra big body, star body, if you will, that would give them a real shot to knock off the Cavaliers, and Danny Ainge didn't do anything at the deadline.
Well, I guess you can.
I don't understand it.
You can look at it two different ways. I mean, if you're on a team and you like the chemistry of your team as a player, and you have good camaraderie with the guys in the locker room, do you really want guys traded, gone, and bring in new people that you have to deal with, the egos and all the things that go with that? There's pluses and minuses always for adding and deleting players because they are humans and their interconnections are important. So I don't know what happened there, and I don't know why Danny Ainge didn't do anything. Everybody thought he would. He decided not to. You know, you bring in an ego like a Jimmy Butler, might be hard to manage. I don't know. I don't know the guy, and he might be the easiest guy in the world to get along with. But
they can't win. They're not going to beat Cleveland 4-7 with the lineup they've got right now, unless Cleveland plays really badly. Boston's not going to beat them 4 times. And to me, I've got to take a chance and get. I would have gone personally. I'd have gone after Paul George, even though it's a rental, because George is probably going to be in. He wants to finish up in L.A. Where he's from. But I'd have loved to have Paul George on the floor in a Celtics uniform for 2 months, and you put him in that lineup. I think they've got a real chance to beat Cleveland.
I can't argue with that. But then of course you got to look north to Toronto, and everybody was saying they have a shot too. And then of course Lowry gets hurt.
Oh, that's a bad break.
That's another one. And so you got a couple big injuries that have just happened, Durant and Lowry, which changes the scope of things. You got Cleveland, who just picked up a couple of guys that's going to make them strong, especially going down the stretch and take some minutes away from LeBron possibly. And then of course you got, it just looks like a cakewalk for Cleveland to get to the final again.
I agree. San Antonio is the threat to Golden State, which is, what else is new? And the Spurs, it's typical. Nobody's paying much attention to them. They just go out there and win basketball games. And if Durant's injury takes longer to heal than expected, or he's not sharp when he comes back from the injury, I would give the Spurs a shot against the Warriors. We certainly know that Greg Popovich isn't going to get out-coached by anybody. So it could turn out that the West ends up being more interesting. Well, the West is going to be more interesting than the East. But maybe it's not as automatic for Golden State as some of us think it is.
Dave, if you were going to go beyond the Spurs and the Warriors out west, who would be your third team?
I guess you look at Houston, but to me, you have to play more defense in the playoffs, and that's just not Houston's game. Houston wants to get up and down the court, and I'm not sure that you can make a big run in the NBA playoffs doing that. But James Harden, he might be the MVP in the league this year. He's been just amazing. And I like this Houston team. They're not playing as well right now as they did earlier, however. And
well, they had a big pickup. They picked up, what's his face? Oh, boy, what's his name?
I'm blanking on it, too.
Williams? What am I talking about? I've lost it.
Well,
puts up a lot of points. I mean, their pace and the points now, the bench points and everything are going up. They're going to be tough to handle. That is a very good choice as a third possibility. Granted, defense, they don't play a lot of defense, but they can move the ball.
No, and I don't think the Clippers. I just don't see the Clippers, even if they're healthy. I just don't see the Clippers. It's just something is. They're just not good enough. A good team when everybody's on the floor, but not a great team. By
Right.
the way, before we get out of here, we'll mention that baseball actually is underway with the exhibition games. And we talk about this in football season, where there can be edges to be had in the exhibition games based on rotations that we know about in advance. Baseball lineups are out there every day. You can get them every day well in advance of the games. You can even get the pitching rotations as well for the day. If you have that information, there are edges to be had in Major League Baseball exhibition games. Now, obviously you get a lot of backups in after the fourth and fifth inning, so you're taking your chances down the stretch. But to me, if you have a substantial advantage early on with starters versus minor leaguers, or a very good early exhibition pitcher against somebody who has struggled, I think you go with these plays. I definitely make them, so that's part of the service. You want to call in and get those games. However, we're not charging for the exhibition baseball, and if you want to get any of my exhibition baseball plays, you can get them on Twitter. Just follow me on Twitter at Dave Cokin, and I post them well in advance of the games. So unlike football, we give away a little something in exhibition baseball. Now, we have free plays as well on a recorded message every day. And Jim, we've even got a toll-free number.
We do. You talking about the Vegas experts?
Yes.
Okay, 888-294-1970. 888-294-1970. And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Jim Feist Sports. And you can get free plays by texting GAME, G-A-M-E, that's the word game, G-A-M-E, to 25827, and we'll send you plays each and every day right to your cell phone.
All right. And I think that's going to do it for this week's edition of Proline. Coming soon, we're going to have daily podcasts. We're going to get those revved up pretty quickly. These will come in handy with baseball season starting, especially getting these updates. It won't be every day. We probably won't do it on weekends. But more than likely, almost every weekday, I'll be on, Jim will be on. We'll have some guest handicappers on. It's going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for details on that. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week with another edition of Proline.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dave.